There's a word that comes to my mind when I think of the band Solstice, and the word is joy. There's something so joyful about everything associated with the band, as far as I can tell, well, at least most of it anyway. And so much of that joy is coming through on the Friends of Solstice Facebook page. To me, it's more than just nostalgia. It's an awareness that a journey that I think a lot of people had thought was over is far from over. The new album proves it, and some of the stories that are coming out on the Facebook page prove that too. So we thought it might be a little bit of fun to dig up some pictures, some of which have been seen on the Facebook page, some of which are yet to be seen, and talk to some of the guys who are part of the journey on stage and off stage, and talk to them about what the journey means to them. To be honest, we weren't sure what to expect. We need not have worried. My name's Martin Kielty. This is Solstice Show and Tell, and I hope you enjoy it as much as we did.
Man, woo!
Right. See, look, look at that. I've got this new laptop. I can swish it around, move it around, and get this tea out of the microwave. It's probably boiling now. Hang on a sec. We're not started yet, have we? This is my teaching studio. Look, there we are. Look, I'm still here. I'm here.
Yeah, play us something.
What do you want?
Something short. Yeah, man, you can still play. Nice.
I've had a great idea, Mark. I could give you another baron lesson if you like.
I hear you're not so good on the baran, man.
Yeah, hang on. I'm just trying to turn you guys up because I can't.
Yeah, it's the volume control, man.
Shut up, you shit. I can do it. I can do it. Right, go on.
So look, we've got a beautiful picture here of, which I believe is Mark's choice, of Sandy sitting on one of the buses.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, now which bus is that, man? Is that the Chinese 6, I think? Or is it?
I think it's the purple one.
The purple one? The one that we bought off me.
Yeah. I think we bought them all off you, Andy, didn't we?
Yeah, I think you did actually, yeah. Or we did, rather. But this was a quality item. I'd converted it for living in, and then we put some extra bunks in it, I think. And it was actually quite luxurious. A bit of a move up from the previous vehicles.
Yeah, I remember the preparations before the final, it's for sort of maiden voyage, which was our first sort of do-it-yourself proper tour. We were all toiling away, weren't we? We had parked down the bottom of an estate in Milton Keynes or something, and we were all building bunks. I think the first 6 foot of the bus that you could only access through the boot, although we boarded that up, and that was for all the gear. And then the next 6 feet were like bunk beds, 3 mattresses, one on the floor, one kind of 3 foot above that, and one 3 foot above that. And they were both sides, so we had basically enough space for 6 people to sleep. And
then because when we did the Brave New World tour, the first 6 feet that you described became Trilogy's pad, if I remember right.
Lakeside Park.
Yeah. But they didn't make it very salubrious, did they? It just kind of...
No, it was disgusting. And also it was prone to, because we'd put the back window, I think we'd replaced with steel. So the whole thing was just like a water reservoir, So the water, their breath would condense on the steel and just run down, and they used to take it in turns apparently to lie in the dry spot.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, that's rock and roll, man.
I remember when Febreze just came on the market, the spray guns that would freshen fabric. And I was touring with Alex Harvey Band. It was a double-decker tour bus, 16 berth. And God, that fucking stank, and then discovered this stuff. And I used to be like two-gun techs. As soon as all the bands got off the bus to go do the sound check, I was all the way up and down the bus. And then Chris, the bass player, was going like, Martin, you need to do something about this. It smells too clean in here. It isn't a tour bus.
That's right. God, it's nice. So, Martin, can I just ask where? I mean, it's great hearing you speak. Because we did a lot of playing in Scotland actually, and just hearing your voice is actually doing more to sort of transport me back to those places than any of these pictures. Where are you from, if I may?
I'm from Glasgow.
Glasgow, right? Yeah. So, where did we play?
Night Moves.
Night Moves. Yeah.
Yeah, that was. Slightly before my time, although I was in bands with people who played there, and it was like, a proper kind of like speakeasy vibe, a real kind of the smell of rock and stuff. Yeah, we were sort of under the impression that, when we first went there, that they would just sort of eat us alive, literally. We were these sort of, middle class hippies from Milton Keynes, the home county in England, going up to darkest Glasgow, and that place. What was that place?
Man, the one that frightened me was the Heathery Bar in Wishaw.
Yeah, the Heathery frightens people for Wishy as well. It's not called Pishy Wishy for nothing. In fact, I'll tell you a story about that particular club. I was there during the day. I was crewing for a DJ, and he'd done a set the night before, and we were coming back the next day to pick up the rig. But they already had bouncers outside the pub during the afternoon. That's kind of place it was. And this guy kind of comes up really kind of cautious towards the bouncers. And he's sort of like, am I okay to get in? And the biggest bouncer smashes him twice in the stomach, once across the face, and goes, "That's for last night. Now in you go."
What? So we were right to be scared.
Oh yeah.
They did.
Place the Heathery.
Night Moves did have a wire curtain to pull across, like in Blues Brothers. They did that one there. Yeah. But we went down a storm. Oh, you always sort of thought they really know their rock music in Scotland. There was always these great clubs that took 200, 300, 400 people, pretty much in every town. Brilliant.
Okay, I mean, people really lived it to the point that in 2005 I wrote a book about the Glasgow Apollo, which was the legendary place in Glasgow where everyone came to play. And it got to the point where big bands like Yes and King Crimson, that they would start the tour in Glasgow. And the Glasgow audience would get a longer set, because if a song didn't work, that audience would tell you about it. So the rest of the world got a refined set based on what the Glasgow audience preferred. And as you say, they really, really lived rock music. And even if it was music that wasn't to their taste, say, Kraftwerk played the Apollo to about 10 people, but the 10 people took them for a Chinese meal after it just to say thanks for playing your music. And then because they had that reputation, Kraftwerk are nice guys, it sold out the next time just because they were nice guys who cared about their music.
Yeah, I mean, we used to do these gigs where we go into these places that were renowned for being hard and heavy, and we would literally be, cacking ourselves, and then we go in and all these cavemen would be like, "What the fuck are they?" And then we'd start playing, and somehow they'd kind of mellow, and then there's smiles, and people would start moving, and then they fucking love us. I mean, it always begged belief, because we really knew how. I mean, obviously, we must have had something going for us. I mean, that is true. I'm not saying we're the greatest things in sliced bread.
I would suggest it's just that musical honesty, the expression of something that you mean, because as I said, back in Glasgow, probably the two most popular bands of all time are Status Quo and Rush. And they're some distance apart, but what they both share in common is what they did on stage, they fucking meant. Yeah. And it's like that shared, the people on stage were having as much fun as the audience. And, the word joy keeps coming back to everything I relate to Solstice in my short experience with the band. And that seems to, as we're talking about going back through time and looking at these old pictures, everyone's happy, everyone's having a great time, and everyone on the Facebook page is sharing great times that it reminds them of as well. So I would suggest that what you were transmitting through all of those years was just this joy and musical honesty, and it's still there today.
The Scottish thing, to me, is also relates to our experience with bikers, which was another group of people that fucking terrified me in the first instance. And I thought were just, I remember Do you remember Susie, my girlfriend, from right back in the beginning? And we, she was like, I don't know, 18 or 19 or something, in a little shorts, and we went up to the starting gate in Milton Keynes, the biker pub. And I mean, I was just terrified that they were going to take her or something, and then they were going to kill us all. They were going to kill us all and take our women.
That's right. That's right. That's another example of walking into the lines there, because in the end, we came to kind of own that place pretty much. I mean,
well, they adopted us, didn't they?
They did adopt us, but the first time we went there, I think we were just a 4-piece. In fact, I think it was before Martin joined. So we had our old drummer, Dave Harden. Yeah, we were terrified, and that was another one. They were all like, they were watching us sound check, and I was like, trying to be as rock and roll. And then they fucking loved us. Great.
A lot of the pictures, on the Facebook page, and as we've been talking about this evening, do involve touring and the fascinating vehicles that you guys used over the years. But it comes across to me that you guys had a significant commitment to touring, whereby other people would maybe hire a van or throw everything into their dad's estate car or something. You guys were, let's get the vehicle and let's do this as properly as we can.
Yeah, I mean, I think we came out of, both me and Mark, and probably you as well, Phil, I don't know. But I mean, we actually lived in vehicles, for long periods. And you had that double-decker bus, Mark. Yeah. Jesus.
I can't believe when we did that.
Yeah. But so we kind of came a little bit, we were sort of part of that culture, I suppose. And our real, I'd say probably our real home actually was places like, was the festival scene, where possibly we felt most at home. Maybe you disagree, guys, but playing Stonehenge and places like that.
No, it's totally right. It's totally right. I'm not quite sure where that came from, really. I think it's just our love of. It is really our love of music. Because if you remember back in the days, the days of the squat and, whatever. I don't know if I'm allowed to say all this stuff.
Hedgehog House.
It was like 50 years ago or 40 years ago. But the amount of. What did we do apart from get stoned? Was was listen to music all the time. Racks and racks of records. I was going to say, and all the music that we loved, a lot of it came and evolved from the 60s and the 70s, where it was all really harking back from to the 60s. And I remember, albums like, I remember Running on Empty. Who's that by?
It's Jackson Browne. Jackson Browne.
Yeah. So that was all about being on the road, and there was a kind of, that was of course when people really did it, and there was money to invest in it, and I think basically just like everything else in my life, everything I've done is like, it was all over, and I've just sort of come at the end of it. But actually, it's a thing that was really happening like 15 years previously that I've fallen in love with an idea, and I think we all came together at that time, on the back of ideas of being on the road and playing and we did to some extent. For a good a good couple of years, which of course when you get to our tender age is not much. But back then, when you're 23, 2 years is a long time to be. Well, we were together for about 5 years, but 2 years or 2 or 3 years of hundreds of gigs.
That comes back to, what we've been roundabout discussing, that perhaps maybe this is the secret to survival as trends come and go and then come back again. Maybe Solstice is as much an attitude as it is a collection of songs that have been written over the years. Maybe it is the attitude of, we lived in vehicles, so touring was home, so festivals were home. So being used to meeting new people in every different environment wasn't a skill you had to learn, it was something you already had. And it was, people had to come to you rather than the kind of more traditional thing of when a new band goes on stage that none of the audience knows, the band have to try harder than usual to get attention. Whereas it sounds to me, and I could be wrong though, but it sounds to me as if people were already going, you could tell that, a group of people, a community, a tribe had rolled into town.
Yeah, I think that picked up momentum pretty quick, because I was just reflecting last night. You were saying about travelling in vehicles and that. I kind of effectively teamed up with the band in the summer of '82, about the time the Morning Light tape came out. But I ended up living in a house in Farthing Grove, which is this notorious estate in Netherfield. Famous houses you can dismantle in 2 hours with a set of sockets. Mark was living in his flat in Springfield in Milton Keynes. I think, Andy, you were still down in Berkhamsted.
Yeah, probably.
Martin was in Bletchley. I think Mark Hawkins was still down in wherever he was, near Amersham.
Gerald's Cross or Chalfont St Peter, yeah. Some real kind of posh, toury end of the world, you know.
But anyway, I ended up in this house with the two Smith brothers, Tim, who ended up doing all the merchandise. We bought this battered old Transit for £100 called Norman. We one of the first gigs we did was the famous Cambridge Cellar Club, you know, the one Martin never turned up to because he got his dates wrong. And Mick Pointer played the drums for Solstice. and then very quickly, so in the space of about 2 months after that was when the Bedford TK come on to go up to Scotland. Later on, you had your bus, Mark, and yeah, we really did. But it did, didn't it? It just picked up a head of steam. I really think it was that Scottish tour.
But if you go right back to the beginning, Mark, you know, as you mentioned the squat. So this Martin, you relate to this. So it was a lockkeeper's cottage. It had been derelict for years, and a bunch of us were living there. Moved in there. You know, there was no glass in the window frames or anything. It's just plastic, open fire, damp as fuck. You know. But that's sort of where it started, because we were a bunch of people kind of living together. And as you say, Mark, you know, what we were doing all day was, you know, when we weren't working, trying to earn a crust, you know, was listening to music, you know, getting high, talking about the possibilities. You know, we were like 18, 19, 20 years old, you know, and that was the kind of crucible of it. You know, I'm just thinking about that now, you know, off the hoof here, but that's where we kind of shared our love of music and recognised. And I remember meeting you for the first time, I think, via Tom Moy on a park bench in Aylesbury, where he suggested the seat. We met on the seat, you know, and obviously got on, and that's kind of where it all started, and then went through the squat thing, and then Brook Street, you know, practicing in the cellar, and then doing that first gig at Berkhamsted and discovering that people were interested. And then, a couple of years later, we jumped to what you're talking about, Phil. And that's where, you know, the momentum really, really kicked off there, right there, as you say. Extraordinary.